Hi, welcome to another episode of Local Look with Karlen Reed. That's me, I'm your host. This is a local television news program for Concord, Massachusetts. Today we have a really special guest to interview. It's Matt Johnson. He's the chair of the Concord Select Board, and I'm absolutely thrilled that he's able to join us. Matt, thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Karlen, and I've got a few minutes. It'd be great to share a few things with you.
Good. Let's start out with the easy stuff. Talk about yourself. Give me some of your background.
Yeah.
What brought you to Concord, what you've been doing here up until this time. You take it.
I grew up migrating around America because my father was in the construction industry. So every 3 to 5 years, he'd finish a project, we'd move on to the next town. That went all the way through the South, Virginia, Tennessee, and Texas, to the border of Mexico, and then in high school to Iran, where my dad built, along with a lot of other people, a polyester acrylic fibers plant to use up oil. Anyway, I graduated from high school there and came back to Virginia for university, went to grad school, and then moved up to Boston afterwards because I couldn't really think of any other place I'd rather be. And I met Margot, my wife, in Concord in 1992. And kind of the rest of it has continued from there. I've basically lived in Concord almost the whole time since then, as she has. And interestingly enough, my parents, as well as her parents, moved into town. So we suddenly, from being, migrating people, we became very, very settled in Concord. And so now, I mean, this is the 30th year that I've been here. And I'd say that if anything in our family, Margot's probably more involved in the community than I am.
I don't know. That's kind of hard to imagine. You've been you were on the planning board for quite a while, I think.
Yeah, but that's part time. She's pretty much full time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this town, we raised our kids. We had 3 kids. Went through the public schools here until we had like 3 years of relocation in Madrid, just temporarily in Spain, and that was very fun. But then we've been back since then. So.
Okay. And your involvement with the town. You were on the planning board.
Yeah.
How'd you get involved in that?
So actually, I was living in town for quite a few years without really being involved in the town, government. And I did get pulled in essentially because in 2008 there was a proposal to put fences up in Rideout Park. And for baseball fields. Right. And then there was a big, mobilization of the community. There also were proposals for housing projects in our community. And I realized at that time, this is how the town works. There's the Recreation Commission, there's the Planning Board, at that time, there was a redevelopment of West Concord, and there was the master plan. And so there was the West Concord Task Force that was formed. And so that was actually my very first assignment, but that's when we got pulled away to Madrid.
To the task force, then to Madrid, then came back to the planning board.
When I came back, I actually I said, I want to really get involved in town government. Yeah. And so at first they didn't have any openings on the planning board. So I was on the zoning board for a little while.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay,
but
Board of Appeals.
I am more of a policy guy than,
Gotcha.
enforcement person.
Gotcha.
And so also, it takes a real, I think you really should be an attorney, ultimately, I think, to be on the zoning
And your
board.
background is not law, it's IT? What's
IT. So, well, actually, it's odd, but I have a master's in English literature.
Okay.
And
well, at least you're a good communicator. Okay,
yeah, well, and then I got into programming almost by accident because at that time in the 80s when I was first working in this field, there just weren't that many people that were formally trained, and I started teaching programming languages. Then I became an engineer. Now I'm a product manager.
Got it.
So I don't write code myself anymore.
Well, being able to communicate and also with people as well as with computers, that
yeah,
sounds
and
like a pretty
big
good
projects
skill.
and planning. And my work now involves on the software side, sort of planning the future of a software product or a set of them.
Sure.
And so it actually translates really well to the work in Concord. I almost feel like I'm a product manager for Concord.
Okay.
That we're really trying to define, well, what enhancements do we need to make to the town, and how can we get those done, and in what order can we get them done, and so forth, and to make it an ever better place to be.
Got it. So that's a good point. That brings me to my next question: is how do you see your role on the select board in Concord? You're the chairman right now. What kind of role do you think the select board has to play?
Way back in I think the late '60s, they had this concept of the Peter Principle. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I know.
You rise to your level of incompetence, and at times that's what I feel like. I'm at the select board. The planning board was very comfortable, like I said, relative to being a product manager, is very similar kind of role. The select board is a much more complex role. It's really being on a board of directors. That's the better analogy. And it's kind of the board of directors for the town. And I think the very most important thing that we do is to find and hire town managers, if we need to. And that hopefully is a rare event, but when it happens, as it just did, it's a critical role that we play. But we also have authority over the public way when people want to dig up the street or install things on telephone poles. They have to come to us. If they want to have a liquor license, they got to come to us. Basically, the kinds of things that deal with the public atmosphere of Concord. So that's a sort of a licensing and regulatory authority. But then I think that the thing that people most associate with the select board is more or less managing the projects process in town. So the daily activities of operating, the police and the fire department and having water and sewer, and I mean this town has every aspect of operation, like its own media studios that a small country would have. We're like a tiny little principality.
Sure.
And that is really run mostly by our town manager and the department heads. But then there is a parallel process where we're setting future policies for the town. We're trying to understand what the public's needs are, and fulfilling those needs, and also at times, dealing with litigation as that comes up. These are these sort of more policy and future-oriented aspects of the town. That's really what the select board's responsible for, I would say. And a board of directors. So we work with the town manager on the implementation. Yeah. Just last night we had a report from the Junction Village. From the Junction, we had a report for the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Committee that's been responsible for looking at changes to Junction Park to reduce conflicts among users that are on bicycles versus those that are
Let's talk
walking.
about that. That was an interesting
issue
to watch.
Yeah, just to finish the thought though, the idea is we look at those proposals, we evaluate those proposals, and then we direct the activities that follow. And the Department of Planning and Land Management and the Public Works Department are the ones that actually will spend the money and implement changes. But, we are coming up with the decisions recommended by the committees coming to us as to what we should do from a policy perspective.
And that's part of the charge of these committees, is they're supposed to do the research, make the report to the select board. Yeah. And once you give the official okay of either, yes, we accept this report, or we want you to look at something else, you'll also be hearing from members of the audience at the meetings who say, well, they didn't quite go far enough, or they went too far. That you have to balance out not just the committees and the staffers, but also the members of the public who react to what's going on. And I think that's one of the things that you really do bring to the select board, is your ability to relate to all those different types of people.
Yes.
At one time, in a public setting, in an open meeting. It's actually very well done, I would say.
Well, it's a challenge at times. I mean, because you would hope that in a public process. There are public meetings that have already occurred. People have worked really hard to write a report. They've had to listen to a lot of folks. It's that you would hope they would all come in and everybody would say, yes, this is it. But
that doesn't
not
always
the way a
happen,
public
does it?
process works. It's usually there are people who, are not happy or that have additional ideas, and we need to always have an open mind and consider those ideas. And yet we also need to get to a point of decision and take action. And there's only one set of actions we can really take. We do have to ultimately choose one or the other.
Okay, let's talk very briefly about a couple of issues going forward.
Yeah.
What are the big things that we can see in the next 6 months, 12 months, 3 years?
Okay, well, we mainly focus on the next year and our goals. I mean, we have in the back of our minds the things that are going to be 5 years. And indeed, there's one of our goals for this year that is based upon the next 3 years, literally, and that's the Concord 250th celebration, of the American Revolution. And in order to pull that off, you have to have started already.
You've got to prep.
It's,
we've got prep
and the last time that they had a big celebration, the 200th, they started in 1969 for something that was due in 1976. Now, we didn't have to go that early, but here, 3 years ahead, we're really in, crunch time.
Okay.
To decide what's the scope of the event, the theme of the event. There are lots of considerations. For example, that the Easter Sunday will be right in that same weekend, so that actually could affect the number of people coming from far away. And so there are lots of considerations, but also there is kind of the entire character of the event. Is this a retrospective, of revolutionary events themselves? Is it a celebration of the culture of America and how it has progressed from that time? Is there a critical element? There were prominent slaveholders in town who are among the heroes of the revolution in Concord.
It involves a lot of
issues. And so there are a lot of, important issues to consider, and they need to be established in order for the program to be developed appropriately.
Sure, I suspect that we'll be exploring that at some time in the future. What
Quite a
other
bit.
issues besides the 22nd anniversary coming up?
Yeah, so we...
October 6th.
October 6th.
October 6th, if I might hint.
Well, that's the proposed date for a special town meeting.
That's right.
And that's about a new, work for water facilities in town. However, that's not in our top goals, believe it or not. And indeed, that there's a possibility that'll get deferred. But the top goals do include things like having a comprehensive transportation study in town.
Right.
Because we do have this new policy of complete streets, which encompasses not just automotive users, but pedestrian and cycling users, and really to develop a transportation system for Concord that incorporates all of those modes is quite complex.
Got it.
So another item that we expect to happen in this next few months is the judge to rule on the Esterbrook Trail or litigation. It's a long-running case, and for public access to that trail off the end of Esterbrook Road. And so whatever the result is, and we have no idea what it will be, there's likely to be some additional actions that we need to take.
And we've got something coming up on September, the special town election, and that's regarding the school systems, if I remember correctly. That's part it included with the primary, but we have a special town
that's
election
a tiny issue.
It's a tiny issue, but it's an important issue.
Well, okay, the work that they've been trying to do here
at the high school.
At the high school,
right.
But no, actually, I was. I felt it was unfortunate that we had to have a special election for an item that, relative to other budget items that we have for the school, is quite small. But we also have the middle school building project to talk about a larger school project that's going on. And so there, we need to be careful about maintaining the educational plan and the other facilities that the public expects, while at the same time taking into account the budget in a highly inflationary time, and also the impact potentially on the tax base of higher interest rates that when we borrow the money to pay for it.
Sure.
So these are big concerns that we have in this coming year. One thing I can say is, one of our first goals was to hire a new town manager. We're done with that. And to review departmental goals. And we did just finalize the town manager's goals last night for the fiscal year and reviewed the departmental goals. But we do have another activity, the personnel study task force that's going to be, that should be reporting to us. Now it looks like it's going to be in September on changes to the personnel bylaw that we have in town and the personnel board that has been in place since the 50s in order to modernize the role of that board and the relevance of the work of these human resources professionals to the town's employees.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot on your plate.
Oh,
and
it's
I have to tell
just a few things.
We're about done for today's
I could
list,
talk on
because
too
you
often.
can go on. Is there anything in the last minute that you want to say, or any wind-up, any other aspect that you want to express? Because I really do appreciate you being here. But you get the last words.
No, well, I just would say, Concord is a wonderful place to live and work and to play even. But we also do need to take into account diversity and inclusion in this town. And it's a very challenging thing because of just simply the cost of property, the cost of living in this town is very, very high. And so it tends to isolate the populations, and we need in every aspect of how we conduct ourselves, of how we support affordable housing, how the initiatives and the shape of the events that we define, to really deeply consider, is this inclusive? Are we, in hiring practices, in staffing our boards and committees and everything, seeking to diversify and to be more a part of the general fabric of this nation?
And it's a way of making Concord a better place, isn't it?
Yes, and not just a little fiefdom that's off to the side. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Matt, for your time. I really appreciate that. And I look forward to the next time we have a chance to sit down and talk.
All right. Well, thanks talking to you. Good talking to you, Karlen.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hi, welcome back. It's Karlen Reed. We're back with Local Look, and now we're going to be looking at what's going on in Concord, Massachusetts, in the town government. I have 5 committees that we're going to be looking at today. They are the Concord Select Board, the Historic Districts Commission, the Middle School Building Committee, the Light Board, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Let's see what's been happening in each one. Okay, first, let's look at the Select Board. That's chaired by Matt Johnson. On June 6th, the Select Board approved a draft town meeting and town election calendar. And you can see here in these 2 pictures that it's quite complex. They have a lot of steps that have to be taken coming up to town meeting, and it's not a very simple thing. But this is the calendar that's been approved by the Select Board. You can see that the town meeting is currently scheduled for Sunday, April 30th, starting at 1:00 p.m. at the high school, and it goes on from there. Also at the June 6th meeting, the Select Board heard an update on the Nagog filtration project, an important water facility for Concord. This project is eligible for some low-interest state loans if the town is willing to support this program. I believe that we will be having a special town meeting to discuss and vote on this project on October 6th for the Nagog facility, filtration project. But we'll see how that turns out as we get the schedule going forward. The upcoming meeting, special town meeting, could reflect this particular project, which could be very expensive. We've heard estimates of $10 million to $30 million for this filtration project for Nagog Pond. Also on the Select Board on June 13th, the Select Board heard reports from the Fiber Broadband Task Force, giving their information about investigating the status of the deployment of town's broadband in Concord, and a report from Jason Bolger, who's the town's chief information officer. He was reporting on the new 5G small cell wireless installation policy. Okay, now let's take a look at the Historic Districts Commission. That's chaired by Luis Beres-Batia. On June 2nd, the Historic Districts Commission heard a proposal from Tom Kearns on behalf of Concord Academy. Here are two pictures of Concord Academy's project that they've presented to the HDC. One shows the current layout of the Concord Academy campus, and the next shows the proposal to expand the western portion of this campus. The proposal is to redevelop 40% of Concord Academy's campus on the west side by building what's going to be known as the Centennial Arts Center. It'll be a large building, 35,000 to 37,000 square feet. The project will also involve relocating three faculty residences and change the entrance location for the west gate. The initial reactions from the committee were calling it a zone of opportunity, a big project with a big impact. It will reduce the on-site parking of the project, and it will involve 4 different committees' approvals: the Planning Board, the Natural Resources Commission, the Historic Districts Commission, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Once all those approvals are achieved, construction will start in 2023 and should finish by 2025. And this is part of the Concord Academy's 100-year celebration of its founding. The Historic Districts also heard on June 16th another request, application for constructing a home at 615 Lowell Street. And for the third time, the Historic Districts Commission denied the application to build a 3,500 square foot home on a lot of land that has 40,000 square feet, almost an acre in size. This is unusual, and it was so unusual, it was actually an article about it appeared in the Concord Journal describing this particular process. Okay, now let's turn to the Middle School Building Committee. The Middle School Building Committee heard some surprising news. As you can see in this photograph, the committee is looking at the impact of a new announcement that the construction costs are going to increase by over $5.3 million. And you can tell by the faces of the people in this photograph that they're not pleased with that increase. This is construction costs that are being increased due to changes in the price of steel, the price of the lumber involved. And after listening to this announcement by the designers of the middle school, the committee voted 11-1 to proceed with the design plans to the next phase, which is proceeding to the 60% design completion. By mid-October, the middle school building will be hearing updated cost estimates from this committee, for this committee. The project is scheduled to go out to bid in March of 2023. Now, the committee is going to be discussing whether and how to cut the design down to meet the town's voted approvals for the construction of the middle school building. Meanwhile, the school committee and the finance committee are also going to be meeting to discuss the increase and the impact of these construction costs increase. Okay, now let's take a look at the Light Board. The Light Board is chaired by Brian Folds. The Light Board announced, after reviewing some information about the wholesale price of natural gas and electricity, that our electric bills are going to be going up starting July 1. As you can see by this graphic, the price for the median home will see a $30 per month increase starting July 1, lasting through at least December 31st of this year. This is going to be showing up in the bill insert that you'll be getting. You probably got it already in your June bill, but you should also be seeing it in your July bill. The Light Board heard a presentation on June 8, and they held a rate hearing on June 22nd, approving this rate increase. The rate increase itself is it's part of the power cost adjustment component of your rate bill. So if you look at the electricity bill, there'll be a line on that says PCA, or power cost adjustment. That reflects the cost of the wholesale natural gas and electricity that the light plant uses to generate its services. That power cost adjustment is going to increase by 5 cents per kilowatt. Now what that means is the more electricity you use, the more this will impact you. If you don't use much electricity, the increase will not hit you as hard. But the median residential customer's bill is expected to see a $30 a month increase starting July 1. When I saw that bill insert, I had a bit of sticker shock. But then I wanted to know, is this permanent or is it temporary? And it sounds like it's going to be at least till the end of this year, this calendar year. Next year, when the electricity rates are reevaluated for the whole rates, that rate, the power cost adjustment may drop down, but the overall energy charge, which is another component of your electricity bill, that may jump up too. So stay tuned and watch for that. Also, the Light Board heard a presentation by Dave Wood, the light plant director, on the early plans for putting solar panels on the new middle school building, on the building roof, and on the canopy for the parking lot. Mr. Wood said that he's estimating that this project will generate 1.6 megawatts of power, which is enough to fuel the school's needs and have a little bit left over for the town as well. The project will cost most likely $5 million, but that doesn't include the battery storage that the light plant wants to put on the middle school property as well to help balance the load in town. Because of this dollar amount, $5 million, it's a possible town meeting approval vote may be required, and it may also be considered a Tier 3 capital expenditure, which has a separate process with the town. The last committee we're going to be looking at is the Zoning Board of Appeals, and this is chaired by Jim Smith. On June 9th, the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals, approved a special permit request by the Thorough Club for a tennis tournament. We're having a tennis tournament come to town August 8th through 14th. It's called the Thorough Tennis Open, and it'll be held from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's part of the Women's Tennis Association, which is a lead-up to the U.S. Open. The Thorough Club expects 90 players in this tournament and about 350 guests. They're already planning to have some traffic issues, so they're saying that there'll be no parking on Forest Ridge Road, which is where this is located, 275 Forest Ridge Road. There will be some overflow parking at the Valley Sports Center to help with the traffic situation, and a shuttle going back between the two. The Thorough Club will have a 3-by-7-foot sign out front announcing this tennis tournament, and they'll be selling tickets for the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals. Okay, so that's our look for those 5 committees today. I want to thank you again for listening and for keeping up to date with what's going on in Concord. That's about it for this particular episode, and if you have suggestions for what you want to see videotaped for local news for Concord, please be sure to call your local TV station, Minuteman Media Network, and the telephone number is 978-369-5038. Thanks again for listening, and tune in next time for another chapter and look at our town's inner workings. I'm Karlen Reed, and for now, thank you very much. Goodbye.